Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. My name is Simone Vincenzi, and I'm your host. And this is the show for coaches, speakers, and trainers who want to grow their businesses while making an impact in the world. And today we are talking about leadership. We are always leading. We're leading our clients, we're leading our families, we are leading our lives, and everything is leadership. And I think that the concept of leadership can take a lot of different twists and turns. And today we're going to take it up in the mountains, and you're going to know what I mean. The guest that we have today, her name is Caroline Elliott. We're going to talk about the Avalanche advantage, how to turn high stakes pressure into high performance team. And whether you're navigating uncertainty, leading under pressure, or building instant trust in high-stake environments, the strategies that Caroline mastered on the front line of Avalanche rescue translate directly to today's corporate challenges. As the first British woman to break into France's elite mountain rescue and fire service, Caroline shows audiences how to turn crisis into clarity, strengthen communication under stress, and build resilient teams that perform where it matters most. So, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Grazie mille, Simone. And it's actually at the moment because we've got the Winter Olympics in your home country, haven't we?
We have. I'm enjoying seeing some of the gold medals that we are getting on our home court. So I'm really excited to see like all the success that the Italian team is having as well so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, I mean, leadership is part of that, right?
Of course
There's
it
a
is.
lot of leadership there too.
Yeah, and the thing is, for me, actually, leadership now, actually, the more I kind of look back on all my experiences, it's as someone said, it's teamship, because I think, from my point of view, leaders, the ones which we actually don't know they're there, they kind of they're in the background, they're guiding us very, very gently. They are the best leaders for me, and yeah, it's a very, very kind of different kind of concept, maybe. But from the area I'm coming from, which is mountain rescue in a snowy environment and also avalanche rescue, you cannot have just one person who gives orders or who tries to guide just one person. We all have to work together.
Tell me, let's
So
expand on this. Let's start this as a starting point of the conversation. I love it. Like, how
mm,
does it translate in Avalanche rescue when you like this?
okay,
I said
yeah.
not one
So
person to you cannot listen to one person because in my mind I'm listening to this and I'm saying, well, don't you? Is it not better to have one person who directs everyone?
you do, and officially you do. You have something called the COS in France, which is the chief of operations of the rescue secours. But really, at the end of the day, they are there and they're silently guiding us. And we need to get in as quickly as possible because we only have 15 minutes statistically to get someone out with a very good chance of survival. So you can imagine you don't generally walk around and suddenly an avalanche happens at your feet. So you're going to be coming from the outside. So we all need to know exactly what we're doing in a very timely fashion, in a very fluid fashion, for us to get results quickly and effectively and high the chances of survival. And I don't know if you followed, it's been in the news quite a bit lately. We've had the worst winter year in many, many years. So we've had over 60 deaths in avalanches since the beginning of the season, and it's going to rise. So yeah, avalanche rescue to, unfortunately, those cases, there are other elements which come into play. Human risk factors, people taking risks, playing with kind of their own fate. But when we come in, I'll give you an example. Like when we come to an avalanche rescue, I was always wearing generally a red uniform because I was part of the fire and rescue unit, and I had my dog. And then they'll have other people like ski instructors. They'll have PGHM, which is the high mountain gendarmerie, and then you have the CRS, which is another element. This is all in France, obviously, and we all have to come together and we all have to work. And really, at the end of the day, we don't even know each other. So you're pushing all of these people on an area which is a rescue center of a high is a hive of activity, and they all need to know what they're going to do. So it's really, really, it's all about planning. It's all about repetition. It's all about muscle memory. It's all about constantly learning how to communicate. And as you obviously know with your experience, communication is only 7% of the word we speak.
Hmm.
Um, and I have to say the most infinite and finite communication, which I absolutely adore, is that between the canine element and my and ourselves are the dog handler. So I love communication with my dog because it's so healthy. And as soon as you will do something which is a little bit out of order, or you'll shout or you'll raise your voice, the dog will immediately, refer. Whereas a human, if you shout, for example, if I shout at you now, you might go, at least I can cut that bit out, for example.
Mhm.
But it will affect you, but I won't know it'll affect you. So dogs will actually rear the communication on their faces, so to speak, or their bodily
Yeah.
behavior. So communication happens in all senses in Avalanche, but it has to be so functioning well for the result to come out. And once the result comes, whether that's removing dead bodies, um, or whether it's removing a whole family, as we had a case of, we pulled that whole family. A little girl, she stayed under for over 2 hours, and she was 4 years old. So statistically, she should have been dead. But we pulled them out. We pulled all four of them out. They were on a road which was shut. But again, the human factor of
Mm.
rescuing someone who had actually not taken the advice of the mountain professional saying it was shut. So we go every day. Where will we? Not every day, but ski patrol every day. But if we're mountain rescuing avalanches, um, we actually just have to work together really, really fluidly. And cohesion, I say cohesion is a massive amount of work to get there.
Which
It's not.
is a big thing like in business as well, because
Oh,
if I think
oh,
about no, I got four businesses, every business is a team, and
mm,
I've experienced from one side to the other
mm,
what is the experience of having a cohesive team where we are all on
mm,
the same page, where
mm.
everyone knows what they're going to do even if we don't talking to each other. And
Yeah.
then I've experienced the other one where the communication fell apart, where things like it didn't matter how much we were talking and trying to do things, it was just like not working. And then you have elements of team members that they might not pull their weight, or elements of things that I'm thinking I'm doing something right, but actually I'm not, and I'm jeopardizing the success of my own business.
Mm,
There's a lot of that element. And
mm,
what I'm curious to know is to look at the element of cohesion. How
mm,
can a team get to that get on the same page? And
mm,
to
mm,
preframe that,
mm,
is it possible that every team gets on the same page? Or there are situations where it does, it's not possible. So, is it
mm.
possible that everything gets on the same page? And how can we make that work?
I think at the end, this is my personal experience. If everyone wants to be on the same page, and everyone is treated with kindness and respect, and that's just basic human elements for me, how we treat each other, but to be kind, and also to bring out how I believe cohesion occurs well is we take the positives of each and every team member, our strengths, and we don't keep focusing on, oh, we need to work on that. We take all the positives and we reinforce those positives. And we work together to push those positives together to make the goal right. So, for example, after an avalanche, if we've had death, or even if we've pulled everyone out, we need to come back and we need to evaluate the situation, and then we go through it, and we generally do go through it, and we go, that was really, really well done, that needs more work on. And then I think also another thing in the business world now is we don't check in on people. We're so kind of, this is what I find scary. We have to in the rescue service, it's part of our protocol. And we have a medical team after psychological unit, which will then pick up on something which is, pretty difficult for us, and they will offer us help. In the business environment, they won't. They'll have a deadline. And if you're not meeting that deadline for whatever reason, you've got issues going on at home, you've got health issues, it's kind of like, well, you're not pulling your weight. And I feel that we should take the rescue world into the business world, in the sense that we should be this psychological safety. We should be looking in on everyone, and everyone as a team should be looking in on, say, for example, whoever it might be, as a French name, Jean-Paul. Jean-Paul is not as chirpy as he normally is, or he's not happy, or he's not coming to the office as early, or he's staying later. There's indications for us that something's not quite right, and it's not just for the lead or the manager of that team to go, it's everyone needs to check on everyone. I think once you kind of get that going and everyone's really, you don't have to get on with people. I mean, I had to work with people who, if I don't see them again, it sounds really bad. If I don't see them again ever, it will be not a day sooner, because also the fire brigade unit I was in, there was a lot of bullying, so it was not a particularly nice experience. But having said that, I'd like to know that people check in on me. And I think, as I say, I should come up with this big wonderful word, but I would say kindness and respect is the big element. And listening, communication is listening to someone, and it doesn't mean listening to them to speak. It's actually listening and observing their behavior. As I say, the best element for me is observing a dog's behavior, because we know immediately when something's wrong. So, and I don't want to compare humans to dogs, but I think we could learn a lot from our dogs.
Yeah, yeah, I believe so. I totally believe so. Because
Yeah.
there is that element and what you said in terms of kindness, right? If you
Mm,
think about what's the foundation of a team, and I think that we're talking about team building activities. I know you're working on something special.
mm,
We're going to talk about that later on, but if we're talking about a lot of team building activities or the ways build a team, there is like, okay, we're going to have our 1 minute meeting or 10 minutes meeting in the morning. Then we are going to create a project management board, and everyone is going to report on that board. And then we need to move the project forward,
mm,
and let's find to put things so to move. And that takes away a lot of the human element. Yes, you can manage a project effectively, but the project, if we have humans involved in the execution of the project, the way someone shows up on Monday is going to be different than one that shows up on Friday, depending on what happens to their week, depending on what happens to their life. So that's a really key aspect of what is the foundation that we are building in the team, and do we have a foundation of kindness, and do we have a foundation of trust? And you said one thing that really stood out for me, that everyone needs to be willing.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing when I see people who are not willing in a team, my things can go, they and they're not in it. They just want to do it and then leave. That doesn't work. You can't do that in avalanche rest. You can't go, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving at 4:30 because I would go and do whatever. You need to be in it to the end. And sometimes, I mean, the jobs we do in avalanche or ski patrol, we are in it generally because we're very fired by passion, and we're not fired by money or deadline, our bonus at the end of the year, because we just don't get bonuses and this kind of work. Um, but yeah, definitely, it's the whole kind of, I say again, it's that checking in and being willing. And it's actually also, I think a manager needs to sit down with someone and say, well, why are you not willing? What's blocking you? And because we all have that old saying about the bad apple in the, what is it, a bad apple in the bucket of apples, or
Yeah.
or actually, yeah, it's like bananas. Apparently, bananas do the same thing, but anyway. Um, but I just think, we all have incredible amounts of positivity in us, but you can actually one day, some people can just drag negativity all the way through. And I work with people like that, and I literally will have to remove myself often. I'll choose not to work with them in a day. I'll go off and do my own thing. But when it happens, if, for example, in the avalanche side of things, you just got no choice. You just have to work with them. And generally, you're not going to be talking. So, but you store, I think, a lot of energies and things like that. Again, the right energy. We talk about energies, and they are there. And if people are resisting constantly, it is tricky. And I don't have any solutions for that, in the sense of what do I do. I just know that I have to, in the rescue situation, I have to just get on with it. I have to work with these people, but then I would take a step back, and walk away from them, um, to protect myself. There's a limit to how much you can do in a team.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, that was going to be like a question. So you already answered it for me, which is like, okay, what do you do? Okay, best case scenario, all kumbaya, we all love each other, we're a great team, have great fun, we all gel, and it's special when that happens. And then you
Yeah.
have the other option where you have one or two or three people that actually they're talking about that bad energy, they don't bring the same attitude, they don't bring the same positivity, they're dragging others down.
Mm,
And sometimes you have the choice, like, oh no, if you are in business, you have the choice to keep that person in your team or not. So
mm,
it's my business, I can choose. If I
yeah.
have someone like that in my team, It's my responsibility. I am keeping that person.
Mm.
But sometimes, like you work in a project and then you kind of forced to work with someone that you don't want to work with. And so find a ways, as you said, to remove yourself or protect yourself. So then the outcome, the final outcome can still be achieved
Mm-mm.
without being dragged down. That becomes also like a
Yeah.
good solution here in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah. I mean, I give you a perfect example of this. I've been working with a resort recently, and it was an extremely toxic environment from the management. And it actually had this ripple effect into the ski patrol team who are getting paid virtually, say very low salary. And it started with me because I actually said no to something. I actually said, no, I'm not going to put on these boots you're providing with me because I don't fit my feet, because it's the basics of work is actually having, equipment so you can do your job. And then it ripple effect from that. The fact that I'd actually said something and then they found out that their skis weren't working properly. So if you bring a stretcher down, you have the possibility you're going to fall. Um, and all of this came from the management, which I find very, very scary because at the end of the day, if your security, health and health and safety and people's lives are in your hands, if the management are not willing to actually come by and put everything at your disposal to do your job,
Mm,
um, and it's the manager's job to do that, in my opinion. Also, it's the manager's job to turn around and say to people who are not causing issues, but people who are having difficulty, should we say, to take them aside and say, "Can I help you? Is there something we can do to help you? Um, do you need some more time out, or do you need to take a week off? Or, rather than get to the point where you've got, I mean, for example, last week we come out of an avalanche with something psychologically very, very tough. We can take time off, and it's better to take time off then to process what you're going through than for it to kick in 3 months later down the line, and then you've got burnout or you've got um,
mm.
what do you call it? Post PTSDs,
PTSD.
post
Yeah.
so elements like that. So, leadership, we talk about leadership, and you imagine just one person going, but it's so complex. And I find it fascinating as a subject because I don't view it. I've seen so many vieilles écoles, as we call them in France, old school systems, even with the dog handlers, where they shout at their dogs, they dominate their dogs. And then, within a couple of months, they go, well, why is my dog not doing the work? It's just like,
Well,
oh, you're
wow.
dominating it, you're bullying it, and you're shouting at it. Do you want that on a daily basis and made to sleep on a hard floor? No.
Yeah.
So,
So I love to switch gear a bit, talking about communication in
mm,
particular in intense moments,
yeah.
because I had this is something that I had to work so hard on myself.
Mm,
Um, in moments of stress, let's say that I wasn't the best leader, like the fiery Italian, the heck are you doing? It would
mm,
come out, and I had actually team members like calling me out on this and say, "Hey, like this is not okay."
mm, mm,
And I remember actually one person, which I remind myself just to try to calm myself down sometimes when there's that that comes out, because sometimes like even culturally we say something and then we forget. Like as Italians, we let it out.
yeah.
We let it
Yeah.
out and then it's not happened. Like we're just
Yeah.
used to communicating that way. I communicate with my mom. I remember my wife was the first time I saw me and my mom interacting. It's like, why are you guys fighting? Like, we're not fighting. We're just having a normal chat. Like, we love each other. And then we had another conversation. She was like, now you're fighting. Like, yeah, now we're fighting. Now, but you can see the difference.
Mm,
And so culturally, even I had to work so hard on like really being conscious about what I'm saying, how I'm saying, in particular in high stakes moment. And I remember one of my team members says, we're not saving lives here. We're building marketing campaigns. It's like you can chill out. And so yeah, you put this in perspective, you're right. But you are saving lives.
mm,
And
mm.
the stress and emotion can get high. So how do you keep communication in a way that becomes effective in very stressful situations?
For a fact, and I do this in a normal rescue, as in on a hill rescue where someone's hurt their back or head, I generally arrive and I take a deep breath and I observe the whole. I take a couple of seconds to myself, and people are like, well, you're not getting, because I think sometimes you've got to take a step back from a project or a situation to give yourself clarity. And you don't have that clarity if you fire right in, and you're not going to get a job done in any better way or in a better functioning way or effective way by bulldozing in. And it's the same with avalanche rescue. You would think that you've got to bulldoze in to an extent. You have to go quick, but you still is that deep breath and that deep kind of, I will take a deep breath in and I will observe an area. It'll probably take a couple of seconds, if that. But that's how I view things to get clarity of what I need to do. Because if you just go in straight, you're not looking at the whole. And when we go into avalanche areas, we need to actually assess where it's safe enough for us to go in, because we don't make victims from ourselves going in to rescue someone who's underneath. So if we evaluate that the area is actually going to avalanche again, or there's no visibility, or there's other dangers in there, we just won't go in. So that's a couple of seconds of reset. Even it's kind of adrenaline, because I'm not going to say adrenaline doesn't go, it always goes, especially for avalanche. I mean, for normal rescues, if you know it's going to be pretty serious, when you take your stretcher, you in your head you're making all these things up. But avalanche, you generally know that you've got a very small time frame, but you've got to be, yeah, you've got to be able to take that step back and go reset. Now I'm doing this. And also the dog will pick up on our chemistry imbalance, adrenaline pumps, and the
Hmm.
dog's pumping, pumping, pumping with, oh, I'm going to work. And I'll put my uniform and the dog knows immediately he's going to work. So if you don't take that step back sometimes to sit the dog has to be sat down normally and put into work mode. It's like a switch you pitch on your avalanche beacon. Same with the dog. You literally have to look at it and give it a sign. So all you used to do was like, shash. So you breathe up your nose and you tell it to look, and then it will go into its work mode. So yeah, it's that 2-3 seconds of reset, I would say, a deep breath and look around. Yeah, and
So
that's
how
how I
does this translate
makes
in
you calm.
yeah, it could be like in an office environment, or even
Mm,
like if you're looking at the complexity of environment where the communication now happens through apps. So if I
mm,
think about like I've got four businesses, every single business, every single team of each business is remote. Don't have a
mm,
physical office. I'm here. This is my office. Welcome. Hello. It's my room. And that's it. And so I found that sometimes some situation or communication can escalate because
mm,
the communication is not in person. Now we don't have that we are here together. Either
mm,
is via text or is via voice messages or is through a third party or through a filter. And I think that adds also another layer of complexity. And now you have the dynamic of maybe a client that is unhappy, someone that maybe have worked a lot of hours to do a project and now they need to do it again. So situations that they're not, we're not saving lives, but they feel like it
mm.
because for us is important, is our work, is the stress, is that pressure, right? So the adrenaline doesn't make it, it's the same situation that happens chemically in our body. So what would you suggest in those situations for team that are in
One, yeah, I
control?
mean, one again, I'd say one is when there is something coming back at you, to actually remain as calm as possible, but to also think it's not personal, for starters. That's a one big thing. It's not personal, even though we talk about your work, but it's not personally a personal attack on you. And then I would say always walk out of a room or an area. That's how I do. So conflict management is actually dealing with the conflict, but I sometimes would say go out, take a deep breath, go and do what you do to calm down, whether that be a drink a glass of water, take a deep breath, and then come back again. I think sometimes removing yourself from the situation you're in, if you can, is going to be more positive than staying there. But the other thing, if you can't, you physically on a call like we are on a call now, if there's something which you said to me, which upset me, I'll probably take a deep breath, because I think oxygenating yourself, and that's as best I can, because I've got to carry on, facing you on this call. I've got no, I can duck or I can hide. But no, it's about deep breath and actually realizing that that is not a personal attack. Um, generally when things are personal. But that's how I would say, is actually stepping back, stepping out of something as best you can. But if you're actually in that Zoom call and people starting going off, and it's also saying, could you please reword that? And then people sometimes will reword it and it will become less. And I think we've all been there. We've said stuff which, as you say, you get fired up and it comes out. And I think what for me, in my French culture, which I've been in, for me, what I always found quite sad was people the capacity for a human being to turn around and go, "I'm sorry." I think if you can turn around, if you've got heated up about something and you've said something, coming back and saying, "I'm actually sorry that what I said or did affected you," that can mean so much to someone. Um, and not hanging on about myself, just that what I said. You know, you don't have to, you can detach yourself from the word. Um, I mean, I have situations where people will shout at me at work, and at the time, you have no time to actually, you just got to get on with it. And it's actually when I come back to the patrol hut or ski patrol area or the debrief room, it's like then you say, "I'm sorry, but I won that hurt, and that's not acceptable." But yeah, it's difficult. So yeah, say again, it's also picking up on, I say, when people do fight, if people are not actually calling out stuff, whether it's whistleblowing or what do you want to call it, then people won't know. So if there is, for example, at work, someone's been treating someone really badly, whichever way it will be, whether it's emotional, physical, whatever kind of, you need to actually be able to turn around and say, stop, and whistleblow for someone else.
Mm.
So I'm going to end up causing riots in corporate entities now. But I just don't believe that we should. I think we should suffer, and if it means I wouldn't worry about losing work or a job, I'd actually get a couple of people to do it with me because, as I say, I've been in some pretty toxic environments. So through my work, that's
Mm.
why I want to do what I'm doing now. That's why I'm moving forward to help people avoid those situations and
Uh,
their teams become more effective.
yeah, and there is a choice. What I love about this message is that there is what you can do,
Mm.
and sometimes the best thing to do is to leave. And they're both because some situation they will not change by themselves, or there is no willingness from the other parties to change. So now I can try the best that I can to be a part of a team, to be a great team player. And then if it doesn't work, I'm like, you know what? Let me go somewhere where actually there is a better dynamic, where there is a less toxic dynamic, where there is a place where I can actually flourish, where I can have team members that, yeah, so we know we're not gonna get it right, but we can all say sorry to each other, and there is this foundation of kindness. Going back to what we said at the beginning, there is this foundation of kindness where, we know that something we might say that we don't mean, or there's going to be a moment of pressure, but that we can always come back, do
And
a
say sorry.
debrief, and then finding, say, okay, I'm sorry if I said that, or hey, I am, when you said that, that's what it made me feel, and then use that as a way to build that relationship. And often what I found is that brings team and people even closer together having these conversations.
Sure. But you've got to have the emotional intelligence to do that. And I mean, sorry, coming from again from an old school environment where, for example, men don't talk about emotions or they don't actually want to admit to actually the big one here, and that's one thing I'd say is ego. There's no room for ego if you want to have a successful, healthy, functioning team. Ego, especially in the mountains, just doesn't work. That is a kind of a no-go word for me, ego. Just
Yeah.
put it in your and chuck it
Just
out.
get it away. Get it away. I know you're working. I know you're working on something that when you said it earlier before we started the interview, it's pretty cool. Taking teams to the mountains. Tell me more about that because
Yeah.
it's a great initiative.
Yeah, no, I've obviously worked for many, many years in with the dog handling. So we simulate avalanche terrains, which are safe environments in the sense that we make them, and we make these holes, and you can well, they're quite big because you make them with a big inflatable kind of sausage thing. But that's another thing, and you push with a piece basher, like the banana things you sit on the sea where you go along like this. But it's a anyway, we make them like that, and they pull this inflatable sausage out, and you can actually fit two people in these holes. And then we push the snow away. And once you're in there, if it's shut with a pea screamer, isn't it, shuts the snow on top of that, you will lie there in the pitch black. So, one, you can breathe. Two, you're equipped with an avalanche beacon. And three, whilst you're in that hole, you'll be in the dark for maybe 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It depends on how quickly the dog finds you. So the idea is actually to bring teams to the snow, not just do only that, but to bring them into an avalanche simulation environment where they'll learn the basics of avalanche. The idea is not to make you train you into a mountain professional. It's actually to train you how you work as a team to get those couple of people we would have hidden for you out, whether that's be taking with the dog, whether that's be probing, which is the long sticks to feel. So we put you under pressure in conditions which you might not know, snow. You don't need to ski. You can go in on foot. And there's other elements we'll be doing like cold water dipping. It's about pushing your limits and actually feeling how you're feeling and feeling cold. And that's when we see teams how they work together. So if someone's cold or they're not feeling great, that's when you see dynamics change because you don't get that in the office. I mean, even if you turn the heating off, you're not going to have someone go, come here, I'll help you and warm your hands up or give you some gloves. That's when cohesion really, really starts occurring, is when you push people out of their comfort zone. And I think also the mountains are such a beautiful environment to be in that it'll be a good, we say, a ball of, I don't know, I'm speaking French English now, like a big ball of fresh air to you.
Yeah,
So you,
breath of fresh air.
yeah, so ball of fresh air. Boule de l'air fraîche. So you'll get there, you'll have your 2 days, 3 days. I'm still kind of working out what's the best kind of, how long, corporate companies can allow
Yeah.
and actually work with these very high precious teams to actually show them that, they can actually function in a normal way and they'll enjoy it. And if they don't enjoy it, then I'll be very surprised. Well, it's my happy area, not happy area being an avalanche, but it's my happy area working and helping teams. So yeah.
Yeah, there is the dynamic of if you are able to overcome something in extreme condition,
Yeah.
then whatever you're doing in the office will be way easier and more manageable.
It'd be like, yeah, as we say, exactly. So yeah, you learn those techniques with us, and yeah, in the office it will seem like
Yeah,
nothing.
whatever. No,
Well,
I was thinking about running events. I'm in the speaking industry, run a lot of events, speak at a lot of events.
mm, mm, mm,
And, you arrive to a point. I remember when I was doing a speaker training years ago, and there was a specific exercise where I had to deliver a presentation while the member of the audience is training, so there were other speakers. They
mm,
were interrupting me and challenging me while I was delivering the presentation. So you're there trying to deliver a presentation in the flow, and then you have people like throwing stuff at you, and then you have people challenging you, you have people talking to each other, not paying attention. And when I delivered in person, I was
mm.
like, huh? That's easy, but
Okay.
I'll tell you which one was the best training I did. I started speaking in schools. I started my speaking career in schools. So after you speak at a room of 15 years old that you have to entertain for 5 hours, because that's what the program manager has sold you to say, hey, I remember I was getting sent into schools with programs that it will take 30, 45 minutes to deliver. But they
Mm.
sold it at the school for a 5 hour block, where basically you had to make stuff up for 5 hours with kids, no change of teachers. Is that when I started running my own events and speaking with adults, I'm like, at least you don't throw stuff at me. Like, you don't throw me pens. You're not talking to me. Like, you actually, maybe you might be bored, but you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I chose to work with children because I've written a children's snow safety book. So I chose to work with children, and I had my dog. So I actually did a presentation at the Kendal Mountain Festival, and I never forget. My dog was so chilled, he actually fell off the stage into the audience, and then something else happened. I was just standing there going, "It's okay. This is nothing compared to what an avalanche is." Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
I did actually as talk for Verbier, so international school in Verbier, and I was briefed before. They go, this is pre in December. They were like, oh, they're just going to be, they're going to look all they're asleep. They're going to look bored. And it's just like, well, that's really given me confidence. But I get in there, I start talking about pictures of rescue, and they all sat there, they're like all on their seats. And the one which was the problem child, which I hate it when they call people problem
Yeah.
childs. And they're like, oh, the problem, the guy who never wants to learn. I was just like, yeah, well, I can understand because he doesn't want to be doing the normal job. He came and talked to me. He was asking all the questions. He was so empowered by what he'd seen. I was just like, oh, I've made a difference to that one person. But children, yeah, youngsters, and that was their age group. I
Yeah.
was dreading it. It actually went really well. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, Carol. It's been incredible having you on the show.
Yeah.
I love the stories. Love the message that we talked about communication. We talked about leadership. We talked about high pressure situation. How also to take care about ourselves to make sure that we show up in the best way. If
Mhm.
someone wants to hire you, get to know more about your work, where is the best place where they can contact you?
There's CarolineElliott.me is the website. And again, if you go want do want to Google or AI me, lots of wonderful details come out there. But yes, CarolineElliott.me, or I'm also on LinkedIn, so Caroline Elliott.
All right.
And if not, your lovely self, Simone.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, CarolineElliott.me, Google her, you'll find
Yeah.
everything about her profile. So reach out if you're running a company and you want to do something different with your team that will expand your capacity actually to handle more and to unify your team. That's great. And also, if you're looking for Caroline to come and speak at one of your conference and events, then reach out. So Caroline, thank you very much for being on the show today. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Simone. It's been a great delight. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching or listening. A couple of things. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And also, if you know one person that comes to mind that you can share this episode with because you find it valuable, you find it entertaining, maybe something in particular that you want them to hear, then feel free to share it with them. Or maybe you have a manager that needs to hear some of these things, so share it with them as well. And then finally, give us a review. Leave us a review. Good 5-star review. They're the lifeblood of every show. Is good for the guest. Is good for the show. Is good for my ego. So make sure that you give that 5-star review. And until next time, remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.